Mark Rogers TV with you once again. Week 4 of our college football predictions. And for a week 4, this is unacceptable. These games are unacceptable. For week 1, yeah, we get it. And we're so hyped and so excited to watch college football. We'll watch anything at that point. But for week 4, these games are unacceptable. Miami and Savannah State, Florida State and Bethune-Cookman. And there's a dozen of these kind of games with huge point spreads. You know we don't like to pick those games, but we have vowed to pick all the top 25 games straight up and against the spread, so we will get through these games. We looked at the first 3 weeks of the season. There were 22 games that had a point spread of 4 touchdowns or more, 28 plus. In those games, the favorite covered just 9 of 22. So if you would have taken the underdog just blindfolded, take the points, take the underdog, you would have won 13 of 22 games. Regardless, do you think we went with common sense and went with the track record there? No, we're taking a lot of big point spreads and the favorites to cover. Stay away from those games. We hate to pick them. We like to separate our record when it comes to the more hotly contested games. Our confidence picks, if you hang with us, 7-3 this season against the spread. 7-3 confidence picks against the spread. That makes us, 53-24 in almost 3 seasons. Confidence picks against the spread. So listen up for those. 1 this week. 1 confidence pick this week. So let's run through all the blowouts and we'll tell you what we got. We're just doing a guessing game here. Georgia, North Texas State. North Texas getting 33.5. Take them against Georgia. Louisville and Florida International. Florida International getting 42.5. Teddy Bridgewater, we will not see you in the fourth quarter. Florida International plus 42.5. We'll take that. Okay, other blowout games would include Texas A&M, SMU. Despite you would expect a huge letdown for the Aggies after losing to Alabama in the game of the century last weekend, we like Texas A&M to cover 28.5 against SMU. They will just score 55 points in that game and give up 21. So we like the Aggies to cover the 28.5. Bama, Colorado State. Alabama and Nick Saban will be working on all sorts of things this week in preparation for Ole Miss next week. Taking on Colorado State, Jim McElwain, former offensive coordinator for the Crimson Tide, 4 seasons, won 2 BCS national championships. So he gets the big payday, and so does the university, $1.5 million. Bama covers 39.5, despite working on who knows what. Nick Saban will be working on this Saturday against Colorado State. Check out our post with Tide991.com's Ben George about the Bama Colorado State and everything Tide in Tuscaloosa. So anyway, Bama 39.5 over Colorado State. We got to UCLA and New Mexico State. We go with our theory from the first 3 weeks of the season finally here. We take New Mexico State plus the 43.5 points. Florida State, Bethune-Cookman. Florida State just beat Nevada last week by 62 points? They're giving 40 to Bethune-Cookman. Florida State covers 40 points against Bethune-Cookman. Miami, Savannah State. Savannah State, look at some funny scores. Look at some of the scores posted and the game results from some of the teams I'm listing here. Savannah State's lost 77-9. They lost 66-3 to teams that turn around and lose 66-3 to somebody else. So who knows in this one, but we'll take Miami minus the 60 against Savannah State. Ohio State started out as a 57-point favorite against Florida A&M. I'll take the Buckeyes here in 49.5 just because the spread dropped by 8 points, and that seems to go in our favor. So we take the Buckeyes minus 49.5. We continue with the blowouts. Idaho State has gotten hammered by just about everybody. Washington, on the other hand, has played 2 really good games against Illinois and especially against Boise State in the opener, winning by 32. So we like Washington minus the 30.5 against Idaho State. Any more here? Baylor will score a ton against Louisiana Monroe. We know that the Bears were very much challenged by the Warhawks last year, 47-42. But this is a different Louisiana Monroe team, not challenging the big boys this year. They lost to the Sooners 34-0. So take Baylor. They will score 60 points in this game, minus the 28.5 points. We got some more. Texas Tech over Texas State. Take the Red Raiders and minus 27 points. Ditto Northwestern. We know that they didn't cover against Western Michigan last Saturday at home. They only won by like 17 or 18 points, but take Northwestern in this one. They're going to score 50 against Maine. Wildcats minus 28.5. Okay, we do have some decent football games, at least on paper. Florida-Tennessee, of course, going way back to the 90s. This one of the great matchups and rivalries in college football. No more. Tennessee lost by 45 to Oregon. And despite the Gators' inability to score on offense, they will score enough to cover the 16.5 points at home against Tennessee. The Vols overmatched in this one. Take Florida minus the 16.5. It's going to be very difficult for Tennessee to score in this game. Gators minus 16.5. Confidence pick. Listen up. Michigan, Akron. We know it was ugly. We don't know what happened. Devin Gardner and the boys will get it back together this week at Storrs, Connecticut against the Huskies. The Huskies lost at home to Towson by 15. I know Michigan looked awful last week against an Akron team that's 3-33 the past 3 years, but this Michigan team is one of the top 10 or 15 teams in the country. It will prove out. Michigan minus the 18 against UConn. Take it to the bank. Michigan minus 18 against UConn. Confidence pick. Okay, Wisconsin-Purdue. Purdue finally looked decent last week and almost beating Notre Dame after barely getting by Indiana State by 6. Purdue's looked awful up until the game at home against the Irish, but they go to Wisconsin, and Wisconsin lays a hurt on them. The Badgers have to be mad after what happened in getting robbed at Arizona State last week. Take the Badgers minus the 24 against Purdue. Wisconsin puts up big points in this game. Okay, we've got a really nice matchup here. Notre Dame, Michigan State. If I could only watch one game this weekend, it's Michigan State, Notre Dame. Okay, we've talked all off-season about Michigan State's inability to throw the football in 2012. That has continued in 2013, excluding the one scrimmage against Youngstown State last week. Michigan State, even against MAC opponents, not throwing the football well. The running game is pedestrian. Le'Veon Bell, of course, off to the Pittsburgh Steelers. And Michigan State, despite having one of the top 10 teams, legitimately top 10 defenses in the country, has trouble scoring. Notre Dame's got a strong defense. They're not great on offense, but they do have Tommy Rees and many more weapons and more reliable weapons with TJ Jones and company on offense than Michigan State with all those wide receivers, Fowler and Burbage, and we could go down the line, that continue to not make the big play. We like Notre Dame to win this game, but Michigan State's defense is going to keep it close. This one could be 17-13. Take Michigan State and the 5.5 points against Notre Dame, but the Irish win the football game. LSU-Auburn, this one a difficult game to pick. LSU certainly a superior football team, and maybe Auburn's fooling us with the 3-0 record, but they did defeat a conference team, Mississippi State, 24-20 last weekend. They did defeat a Washington State team that, of course, beat USC a couple weekends ago. So this has never been a series in which the home team had a huge advantage. So throw out Death Valley. This is Auburn. They've been there. They understand. They go to these kind of settings almost every week. So we know it's a young football team with Auburn, but they're off to a nice start at 3-0. They keep it relatively close. Maybe they score a touchdown late to keep it close enough. LSU wins handily, but we like Auburn plus 17.5 points there. All right, we also need to hit on what might turn out to be the best football game of the weekend. You got Stanford, you've got Arizona State. Of course, the Sun Devils are not apologizing for the victory that they gained against Wisconsin. Certainly, we don't know if the Badgers would have made the field goal, but Arizona State escapes against Wisconsin at home. A huge win for the program, 32-30. Arizona State was a solid football team under Todd Graham last season, almost won the division championship. They have a serious, tough road to hoe over the next several weeks. Check out Arizona State's schedule over the next 5 to 6 weeks. This is a football team that's going to be severely tested. They've got a tremendous defense. Speed all over the place on defense. Wisconsin somehow stayed in that football game. Could have been blown out early. Stayed in the game. Should have won it, as noted. But Arizona State dominated for much of that football game defensively, rushing the passer, covering receivers. Running game, maybe Stanford beats them up, and that's where I think this is going to turn into not a rout, but a Stanford decided advantage, beating up Arizona State physically. Games at Palo Alto. Stanford's just a complete football team. Last week, they didn't need to beat up on Army. They beat them handily by 14 points. They're not going to do that. So I don't like the point spread at 6.5, but regardless, I like Stanford to win the football game and cover 6.5 points. Could be very close, but let's take Stanford. They're solid everywhere. We like Taylor, Kelly at quarterback for the Sun Devils, and Grice is a dynamic tailback. They dropped a ton of passes against Wisconsin, and again, we expect the difference here to be the defense for Arizona State, despite all the talent, is going to get hammered, beat up by that physical Stanford running game and offensive line. Cardinal win it. They cover 6.5 against Arizona State. I think we covered everything in regards to all the blowouts and everything else. Again, the confidence pick is Michigan -18 over UConn. Throw your picks out there. Would love to see the comments filled up with your predictions coming up on week 4 of college football right here on Mark Rogers TV.